quarterly was saying was taking away all the miracles of God that took place in the book of Exodus. That it wasn't really the Red Sea, and it was the Sea of Reeds, and it was only 12 inches deep, etc. You know, if I'd been wise enough then, I'd have thought, well, that's a greater miracle. He drowned the whole Egyptian army in 12 inches of water. But I didn't know that at the time. It just didn't sit well. And then the manna that God provided was a fungus that grew on the trees in that area. And the miracle of the quails, it's because of the humidity. Their wings got heavy and they fell. And I was very disappointed. And one reason that it troubled me, I'd seen the movie many years ago called The Ten Commandments. And yes. I enjoyed the miracles in that better than I enjoyed in the quarterly, so there was only one solution. I had to read the Bible to see what it said about that account. And I found out that the Bible account was more exciting than the movie or the quarterly.
Yes.
But it put me on a search of searching the scriptures. And as a result, I just continued to pursue the Lord. And then in 1 week's time, I had 3 people, including my mother-in-law, come to me and said, do you think God's calling you into the ministry?
Oh, wow.
And it never dawned on me, but those 3 people got my attention. So I went to my pastor and I said, what do you think about this? And he said, well, I've known it for a good while. I was waiting for you to find out. So that's when I just committed myself to the Lord, didn't know what all that involved. And so a period of time went by and he encouraged me to go to seminary, which I thought was good because I needed some training. Tempted to go to seminary and just wasn't accepted. They said that I was too much in debt. And of course, I was living the American dream. We just built a new house, had 2 car payments and everything else, credit cards maxed out. And so they really used wisdom. But I was disappointed, and I still had a little time, so I knew if I sold my house, I could pay off all my debt and be able to go to school. So I listed my house for 90 days, only had 3 people to look at it. The realtor she was very frustrated. She said, I just can't understand this. We're selling houses all around you almost daily, and we can't even get anybody to come look at yours. And it was, it was a nice 3-bedroom house on an acre of land. And anyhow, the 90 days was up. We didn't sell it. So she said, do you want to list it again? I said, no. Only reason I was selling it so I could pay off my debt and go to seminary, and school's already started, so no sense to do it. So I was frustrated, continued to talk to the Lord. And about a month later, we received a phone call. It's amazing how God does things. But this was a lady that her daughter had gone to high school with my wife. And we hadn't seen or heard from her probably in 2 or 3 years. And she called and said, I understand you've gone into the ministry. I said, well, that's my plan. And she said, well, our pastor just resigned and we don't have anybody to fill the pulpit this Sunday. Would you be willing to come? So I called my pastor and he said, go for it. It'd be good practice. So we went down and preached Sunday morning, Sunday night, if you could call it preaching. I'm glad we weren't taping those messages because it was not very enlightening, but the people invited me back the next week.
Wonderful.
So I went back the next week, preached Sunday morning, Sunday night. Sunday night, after the service, the pulpit committee called me in the office and said, well, we'd like for you to come pastor the church. What do you think? And I said, well, I'll give you an answer on Wednesday. In hindsight, I'm sure that was the Holy Spirit because I don't know why I said Wednesday. But Tuesday, I got a phone call from an individual and said, do you still want to sell your house? I'll pay you cash and we won't have any realtors involved. So I took that as a sign from God that this was the right thing to do. So we sold our house and paid off every penny that we owed and moved debt-free down to start pastoring a church.
Wow.
Without any kind of formal training. I was delivering bread to supermarkets and restaurants and what have you, so I went from delivering that kind of bread to delivering God's bread. So,
wonderful.
And so not having any training, I thought it would be good to get a pastor in the local area to mentor me. So I went to the pastor of the largest church in town and requested a mentorship, and he just looked back at me and said, no, I won't do that. You need to go to seminary. Well, I'd already tried that, and it didn't work. So I just decided the only thing I could do was read the Bible and pray. And as a result,